Howdy, Cowboys! Welcome to episode 121 of Project Geekology. Today we're covering something very special. It's, we're doing the first half of Cowboy Bebop, guys. The first 13 episodes. I know we did not tell you what we were covering last week. Surprise, surprise. We are going to be covering a very classic anime. One that we've been talking about covering for a while off the show. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the show, but here we are. We're finally covering it. We're going to break it up into 2 episodes. And today we're covering the first 13 episodes of Cowboy Bebop. I'm one of your hosts, Dakota, and I'm joined as always with
Anthony. And joining us as always is
Rich. Really excited this week, guys. But before we talk about this jazzy riff on anime, what have you guys been up to this week?
Ooh, what have I been up to? Anthony, go ahead. You start.
What have I been up to, man? Nothing really. Like, honestly, I don't think I've had anything really crazy going on. Really, yeah, just like catching up and watching anime, watching this for the episode. But at the moment, my brain, like, I feel like there might be something. I mean, I always do this. I forget. And then, like, I remember, like, later on in the episode.
Yeah.
Hence, what was it, like, when I went to go, oh, you had asked me if I'd seen the Minecraft movie, but I never mentioned it in the beginning of, like, that episode.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah, I haven't seen anything. Like, I haven't gone to go see Thunderbolts, or what else is out right now that people are talking about? I feel like there's something else. No, Dakota, don't do it.
Okay, wait,
okay,
I'm back.
You're back. Alrighty.
Sorry.
But yeah, so...
That was scary.
No, you're good. But yeah, so yeah, I think I'll pass it back to Rich. We're playing a game of catch.
Game of catch, and what I've been doing is catching a lot of Met games and being upset. We went to play the Yankees this weekend, big series, and fell flat on our faces.
Well, you got one game in.
Yeah, we got one game in. So there's another 3 coming back in July. The Mets are playing a little bit of gamesmanship here. The day before the Yankees come to town, they're giving out 15,000 free Juan Soto replica jerseys so that hopefully those fans will don those over the weekend, the next 3 days when the Yankees come to town. Also, in a very petty move, the Mets have a mascot race, and so far this season, there are mascots representing each borough. Right, so you have the Staten Island Ferry for Staten Island, a skyscraper for Manhattan, a slice of pizza for Brooklyn, a subway for Queens, and a giraffe representing the Bronx Zoo for the Bronx. However, the giraffe has yet to win. It is almost comical at this point. It has 0 victories, and I think that I'm not sure if they're waiting for the Yankees to show up and maybe give the Bronx victory, or just continually having the Bronx lose. And if that's the case, I really hope somehow the Mets ownership is involved in this. Like Steve Cohen said, yeah, we should definitely have mascot races. Oh, 5 bros, I'd love that. But we should have the Bronx lose every time. Like, I just like the idea.
I haven't seen the mascots yet, so I don't actually know what you're talking about, but I do like the idea that, the Mets would have their own little fantasy about the Yankees losing regularly.
Man, and then the Red Sox have just been letting the Mets know.
I did actually. I watched some of the Subway series this past weekend. It was actually quite a few really good games. I think both teams really did well. Just one team did a little bit better.
Yeah, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, the only reason I want the Mets to win really was just to like rub it in people's faces at work, right? That's really all I wanted to do. And actually, all that ended up happening was it backfired because I'll just leave it at this. My passion seems to ignite in others the equal passion to denigrate what I'm passionate about. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I think it's my zeal for what I love somehow inspire. Like, it's not just Anthony here on the show, all right, rooting for every team that the Mets are playing against, when I don't think he watched baseball, like looked at scores for like years before this. I joined, and I've got a mentee that I work with who has now learned every single player in the Mets just so that she can watch the replays and then talk trash about them with me the next day. So I don't really understand it, but I'm still excited. It's still early in the season. I got 3 games this weekend. They got some good giveaways. I got a bobblehead in there. Fireworks night, which is always my wife's favorite night of the year. So I think we're gonna turn it around, or I'm gonna be really depressed next week. Like next week, if we lose these 3 games to the Dodgers, I might go into a downward spiral, guys.
I will say that baseball does have some like pretty cool nights. Like every once in a while, like you might hear of like a basketball team or even like football do like a night, but it seems like baseball has a lot. Like I know the Marlins recently had like a nurse night, and the reason why I knew about that is because I have a friend that's a nurse, and they were like, man, like I never knew about that. Like my job never said anything, but I think that's cool. I know there's like Star Wars nights.
Oh yeah.
I think every team does Star Wars nights. I think it's just like a sport wide phenomenon.
I think the only thing that doesn't do it, honestly, is football. I
don't think so.
I think football's too short.
Football does do it. I have
I know soccer does it.
I have a bobblehead somewhere of one of the Jets players in a Yankee or in a not Yankee in a Jedi outfit.
Oh,
so I definitely got that from a game.
Was it Aaron Rodgers in the form of Qui-Gon Jinn because he gets injured and dies right away?
No, it wasn't Aaron. I don't know who it was. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers though. But yeah, no, it was from like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, something like that. But yeah, they definitely do it for football. But I think it's very regular for like you just look at the schedule. They do it like a couple times a month where they have giveaways, in MLB stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. But Rich, look at it this way. For the longest time they were saying that the MLB is a dying sport. Your passion is causing the vitriol of others to get involved in the sport, thus elevating the sport to new heights. In its own roundabout way.
Rich alone is keeping it alive.
I get Major League Baseball should pay me money because they get more clicks on their videos because people want to get stuff to be able to talk trash to me about. I mean,
that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
I literally went online to download a thumbnail to put on my Zoom background just to mess around with you.
Yes. I was like, what? But no,
I like how like when Dakota noticed, he immediately just like started smirking and had to point it out.
Yeah, I didn't even see the Red Sox logo. I just saw like the colors of like the circular outline of the logo behind Anthony's head. It was a beautiful moment. Yeah, it was. And Anthony actually does have some Boston background in him, so
yeah. I was telling Rich a little bit about that.
It's not completely out of left gear.
Yeah, he was one of the Minutemen, right? With Preston, you were part of the Minutemen with Preston. I remember Fallout 4.
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically we all of us who played Fallout 4 were Minutemen.
Anthony also threw tea into a river.
I did. Only the flavors I didn't like.
Oh man, what else you been up to, Rich?
Just finished the hardest probably part of time of the year for me at work. I run testing, so it's basically like I have to be quiet and proctor for 2.5 weeks, which is not my skill set. So I'm happy to be able to be my loud, boisterous self at work again and not have to be quiet and composed.
Excellent.
We'll be back after a quick break.
License to explore with Rohit, where wanderlust meets wisdom. Imagine your next great adventure starting with a story. Welcome to License to Explore with Rohit, the podcast that unlocks the extraordinary. Venture beyond borders into the lives of explorers, creators, and nomads who redefine what it means to live boldly and purposefully. Discover life-changing journeys, untold travel secrets, and unfiltered conversations that inspire you to embrace the unknown. With new episodes every 10 days, we deliver powerful insights and captivating tales straight to your ears. Follow now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your audio escape. Your next journey is just a listen away.
Yeah, I actually have a tough like couple of weeks at work for myself. The bank that I work for is about to go through a merger, and so we've been going through all of these like game plans on like putting people in place because we know that a bunch of all the people from this new bank are going to start just calling in like crazy. So yeah, like they've been kind of bolstering up the ranks, and so they have like the regular like workers that are going to like stay around, but then they also got a whole bunch of contractors to help us out. So yeah, man, I've already been getting some calls from this like new bank, and I'm like, oh man.
I have a weird work thing going on too. Ever since I've been back at work for the past couple weeks, it's been kind of weird because I'm with a company that I know dislikes me, and it's a long story. But so I'm a union electrician. What that means is I get put onto a list when I'm out of work. And whenever a shop needs someone of my skill set, they will, take the top 3 or 4 guys from the list. And when I get to the top, I get pulled to join that company. So the company I'm with now laid me off in 2019 after I made them lose probably like $500,000. The reason, okay, it wasn't their money. That's the thing. They stole it. So I just brought it to the attention of the union. And the union made them pay them
they
back.
were like undercutting you guys, right?
Yeah, so depending on the job, like if it's a public works job, like a government-funded job, state-funded sometimes, that qualifies the job as a prevailing wage job when it comes to construction. So when I first started, I was making like bare minimum like $13 an hour. This was back in like 2018, 2019. I was making nothing, but I should have been making the top rate because it was prevailing wage. I was working at a job for 3 months that I shouldn't have been at because, they're supposed to be hiring like top rated employees that for those jobs. But they were taking all the money that I should have been making, which is like upwards like $55 an hour. And just giving me the $13 an hour. So they were just skimming a whole bunch off the top. And I realized this after a little while that, hey, I'm working at a school. This should be a public works job. So I brought it to my union. Turns out, I was owed a lot of money. So they did have to pay me back. It was not like a crazy amount. For me, it was at the time. It was 10 grand. Like that's the most money I'd ever seen in my life.
I mean, dude, that's 10 grand that you didn't have. So I mean,
that's true.
10 grand is 10 grand. That was your money that you worked hard for.
But then other people found out that I got paid for something like that, and then they started realizing, wait, we've been doing these jobs for years for this company. So they brought it up to them, and the union like audited them, basically asked for all of their hours for all of their employees that could have possibly fit this bill of them being like cheated on. And they probably, some people like estimate it's like somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 that they have to pay back over the course of 3 years of back pay. But it was not their money to begin with. So after that, I was like one of the first to be laid off from that job, and I didn't expect to ever see them again. Like I thought I was blacklisted, honestly. But I got the call a couple weeks ago, like, hey, you're going back to this job site. I was like, are you serious? Is this a joke? And now the owner of the company, whenever he walks into the, look at all the work, he says hi to everybody except for me.
Maybe he just doesn't remember.
He's like, oh, you're
name.
that guy. You're a good worker, but dang, you're that guy.
Yeah, I'm that guy. So, all right, that was a long story where I did the right thing, got laid off, and now I'm back to rub it in their face.
That's actually hilarious, though. Is it, like, have you been working with them for a while now, or like you finished? Because I remember you had just started up a job like a month ago. Did you finish up with them, and then now you're with some new people?
No. It's the same job. I came back to it like end of April, and I've been there for about probably close to a month at this point. But yeah, it's been the same company. It's just I'm just like now like coming to grips with like how awkward it is because like there's so much of just like turning a blind eye to me specifically when it comes to upper management. Everyone else is fine with me, but yeah, so I don't have a problem. I just do my job and Yeah.
You should shave your beard and just like start speaking with like the mid-Atlantic accent from like the 1950s. What kind of voltage you got going here, man? You know, just like, and then see if like management just gets confused and thinks you're somebody else.
Yeah.
Sound like the announcer from Legend of Korra.
Yeah. On today's episode of Going to Work. But yeah, otherwise, other than that, as far as like what I've been up to this past week, not a whole lot. I've continued to plug away at my script. So I think I'm just going to keep giving you like little updates to my script. Anyone who listens and like cares at all, I'm just going to, you'll hear a little bit how I've gotten a little bit further. So I am now well into the era of Kiyoshi, and I am starting up her first novel. I should be starting that up tomorrow. So that's the next section, the next chunk of the timeline that I'm going to be tackling. But yeah, upwards of, I think it's like 20,000 words into the script. Well over an hour long now. It's probably closer to like an hour 20, hour 25 at this point. It's going to be a really heavy video. And again, like Kiyoshi is still like pretty early in the timeline. So I'm kind of nervous about like how long this is actually going to be. But I'm also excited because like I've done a lot of research online, and I think this is definitely going to be like by far like the most comprehensive fan timeline, or any timeline that's ever been attempted for this series. So I'm excited about that. But other than that, just watching Cowboy Bebop. I'm excited to jump into that in a little bit, and I don't really have a lot else going on. Anything else that you guys want to bring up?
They did just announce. I think it was Avatar news. They announced who they casted for.
Yes, they did. They announced some Avatar live action news for season 2, and some of the names are pretty big. You probably won't recognize the names off the top of your head. But if you see some of their faces, you'll recognize a lot of the people that they hired. And it's looking like they hired the right people, and I'm hoping it's better than season 1, basically.
Yeah.
The best tweet I saw was like they cast Dichin Lockman for Avatar Yang Chen in the Avatar: The Last Airbender season 2, and someone quote tweeted that and said, "Goated casting in what will undoubtedly be a bad season of television." And I love that. It's really fun, and it's probably true. I hope it's not, but the first season was just really okay. It was just really okay, and Avatar should be exceptional. You know?
Yeah. They have yet to be able to capture the magic of Avatar live action. You know, like they did do a lot better as far as like the look of the actual bending as compared to like, you know, that abysmal movie, but it's still, you know, we'll see. Honestly, the thing that surprised me the most, and you know, we have an episode on that, was how well they did the live action One Piece. And you know, we're going to be getting that second season very soon.
I'm excited about that. Very excited about the One Piece season 2. Guys, should we jump into some anime?
Yes, we should. So I'm not sure, what was this your first time seeing it, Dakota? Have you seen Cowboy Bebop before?
So I have never finished the first season, or I think it's only one season, but I've never finished
the one season like a movie.
I've never seen the entirety of the season, but I had watched most of the episodes that we watched in this sitting. So I think I had seen the first 8 episodes previously, and I didn't realize I had made it that far into it. But I was like, oh yeah, this is the last episode that we watched. And then I would start the next one up and it'd be like, oh yeah, no, I watched this one too. And then eventually, like around episode 9, it was like a completely new episode. And I was like, okay, all right, this is actually a new episode for me.
Nice. Yeah, like I want to know what you both think about it, because I mean, I've told you that this is like one of my like tops. Like, you know, this is like one of my favorites as far as like the old schools, along with, you know, Neon Genesis Evangelion, Inuyasha. So I really want to like know like what you guys think about it. I mean, especially Rich. Rich is not the I mean, would you consider yourself like a huge anime fan? I know that you like, some Naruto, but you probably don't dive too deep into it.
No,
I know that Dakota is, but he doesn't watch it as much as he'd like.
I mean, I would at Comic-Con, I would avoid, I would literally like instruct my family. We would avoid all the anime section. I had no interest. I didn't want to waste anyone's time. It wasn't until Charlie got into Naruto, and I mean, I fought it. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I just wouldn't. They watched it completely through, and I just then it became a family demand where I was kind of forced into it, and then I watched it to annoy them. I mean, I would. There's this one guy who makes the clay birds or something. I hate him so much. I can't remember his name. And I started like hate watching it almost. I know, or like at least like watching it just to see like certain characters die. Like I was just like, I was like, does this character ever die? And Charlie would say, yeah, in 100 episodes or so. I'm like, okay, I'm strapped in for this one. Okay. Like at least until he dies. So you guys have definitely encouraged me to watch more stuff, and I've come into it with more of an open mind. I mean, other than like, I'd watch Dragon Ball Z in the morning before school when I was like in high school, but I don't know if that doesn't. For me, that was just I needed a moving image on the screen while I. I mean,
that was anime. We probably didn't
Pokemon.
call it that. We didn't call
Pokemon.
it that.
Well, see, okay, so then like a lot of times when I think of anime, I don't think I can put Pokemon in there. I feel like it's different. So like Pokemon, I mean, I was crazy about, but that's 'cause like I wanted to catch them all. So
most of us didn't consider anime. Honestly, we didn't even consider Dragon Ball Z anime. We all thought it was just a different type of cartoon. Mm-hmm. But I mean, honestly, it's animation and it's from Japan, so it's anime. Same with Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh, it's all the same. It's just some are a little bit more catered to the younger audience. Obviously, Cowboy Bebop is not.
Oh yeah, totally different.
This is for a little bit more of like a refined taste, and the story is definitely not one that might grab a lot of like younger kids. But like what grabbed me, because I mean I had seen it. It came out in 1998, but I didn't see it until like a few years later when it came out on Toonami in like 2001. And so like, I was like 9 going on 10 around that time. So, and like, I'm watching this, and what really like got me was like I really liked the music of it, and it had some really good action. Like that's what got me too. It was like, oh man, like there's fighting, they're shooting, this. So, I mean, obviously, and then catching like some really late night Inuyasha, like falling asleep with the TV on and like Inuyasha like being on.
So, Rich, what did you think of what you saw, or at least what were your thoughts, at least from the first couple episodes going into Cowboy Bebop? Because you did come in cold, like you didn't know what you were gearing up for, but like what were your thoughts early on?
So I won't lie. Okay, so first of all, I was talking to Anthony about this before we started recording. I accidentally pressed the sub version of it on Disney, right? Yeah. And then I just wasn't paying attention, so I didn't even realize that there was a dub at first. So I watched the first episode. I don't really watch a lot of stuff with subtitles. I force my wife to do that when we watch like shows in Spanish, but most of the time she wants to watch them, and then she's okay with it. I don't really like doing it. I don't find it to be a really enjoyable experience. So the first episode, I had no idea what I'm going into, right? I don't know. I mean, when I heard Bebop, I thought of Bebop and Rocksteady from the Ninja Turtles. So I mean, I had no clue. The intro has like that stylized, almost noir feel. I know that there's a part that says like New York City or like 1941, right? So I'm like looking at that, but then it starts and we're in space, and I'm trying to get my bearings. I'm like I'm just real confused. All right, and then I think I watched halfway through the second episode the same way, just kind of a little lost. there's a part of me that almost feels like the structuring of the season could have been, because it starts off like, to me, like very, hey, this is another week of a kind of I don't want to call it a police procedural, but like just kind of it almost seemed like it was going to be, this is the, we have a bounty hunter and we're going to get the bounty of the week, right? Like I thought that was going to be the structure. And then suddenly it kind of deviates from that. And when it deviated from that, I think it's in Honky Tonk Women when Faye comes on.
Yeah.
Once Faye came on, I started, for me, it started to pick up traction. Like I really, and then by the end of this arc that we're going to talk about today, the 13 episodes, first I thought that the last 2 episodes almost felt like a season finale to,
it did. Yeah. There's a couple there's a couple points in this first 13 episodes that I felt season finale-esque. Like there's the episode where it's just like it's a bottle episode on their spaceship, the Bebop, and there's like some alien goo crawling around, and it doesn't really ever explain like how they all survived. It's just it feels like the end of the show. Like it just feels like that should have been the last episode, like I thought these guys are dead.
Yeah, I mean it just ends like it ends very beautifully with that refrigerator floating through space with his leftover was it lobster that he had gotten and left in the fridge for way too long. It seemed like this could have been pulled, like it could have almost been like an Office episode, right? Like it's like the horror version. But I think that episode in particular, that's when it started to hit me that a lot of them are done in a style, right? Like this was like that horror style, right? Like that, it's something on the ship, like we've seen hundreds of versions of that story, but it's still good. And, they did it really well. They did it in its own way, but still like very clearly this episode's style is different from the next episode or the one before it.
That episode was really unique to me because I was listening to that one on my headphones, like my AirPods, while I was going to work. And I was noticing like little like sound cues that I don't think I would have picked up on my TV. And at first, when the episode starts, they almost give you like a captain's log from Star Trek.
Yep.
They give a date, and then I think they do say something like captain's log or something like that.
Literally.
And it was very much James T. Kirk-esque Star Trek. I really thought that was a fun play on it, and then it jumped into almost like an Alien movie, or like Ridley Scott's Alien. And so I was like, okay, they're doing that now. All right, that's interesting. And then in like when they're going into the back of the ship and they're like starting to investigate like the deeper parts of the ship and where they find the old fridge and all that, where the rock lobster was, you actually hear like some sound effects that are from Star Trek. It's like the beeping in the control room, like the beep 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 beep, and it's specifically like the tricorder sound effect, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I like that they pull influences into this show, and sometimes it's very clear when the influences are pulled, but I feel like there's so much that they've pulled for like the aesthetic and the feel of this show that it's sometimes like hard to differentiate like what exactly is being, I guess, maybe not riffed on, but influenced by. But for me, like the intro gives me like James Bond vibes, like the James Bond movies always have that like really stylistic song in the beginning of the film where it's a bunch of silhouettes, and I don't know, but it's never really that jazzy. But this is a very jazzy show.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and the cool thing is that with the title of like Cowboy Bebop, I mean you go to like figure out why it's called Cowboy Bebop, because they're bounty hunters, but they call it bounty hunters cowboys, and the ship is called Bebop, but the intro of the actual show is in that style of jazz, bebop.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that I don't know if you noticed that like I would say most of the episodes are like musically, they're named after they have like a musical influence. Like, there's like Heavy Metal Queen, like the
I
honky
did
tonk one.
I did actually like look up one particular. I think it was the episode that I was just talking about. Hold on, let me just look up a list of episodes for Cowboy Bebop, because I feel like the episode names are based on like actual songs. Like, so when I looked up, it's called Toys in the Attic, which is the one with the space creature that was on their ship.
That's
Toys.
Aerosmith, right?
Yeah, it's an Aerosmith album.
Yeah, it's their first album, I believe. That's the one with Dream On.
Yes. So I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty. Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody is the next episode that we have not watched yet.
Yeah.
So it's very clear that like they named the episodes after songs or albums or other musical influences. Honky Tonk Woman, yeah, so definitely.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Dakota, as somebody that like, kind of grew up in that, that early era of like, anime with like, Toonami and Dragon Ball Z and stuff. Spike, his voice actor, Steve Bloom, did he sound familiar to you?
He did, and I couldn't pinpoint it.
He also does the voice of Tom for Toonami.
No,
I mean, he does a lot of voices, but he does do
Oh,
Tom in
yes,
Toonami.
You're right.
Yeah,
it's
it's really cool. He has an iconic voice.
In the back of my head,
kind of very similar to Chris Sabat.
Yeah, in
who
the back
does,
of
like,
my head,
Vegeta and
I
All
kept
Might.
thinking like he's got such a laid back voice, and I don't know why I keep thinking about this guy like just lazing around and speaking, but that's exactly what Tom did in the Toonami like intros and stuff. So that's
And
cool.
it's so and his voice like pairs up so well with like the demeanor of Spike, and his like it's like the voice actor and the actual like character like line up like almost perfectly, or at least he emulates that so like perfectly.
So I wanna also like just briefly touch on the fact that this show, like barring whether you like it or not, this show's clearly very influential for stuff that has happened after the fact. And the most blatant influence on popular culture that Cowboy Bebop has had, at least from my perspective, from an outsider looking into the show, 26, 27 years later, Firefly. Firefly has to be based on this.
Mm-hmm.
The influences are so bizarrely similar. The crew makeup is very, very similar, including Edward. He almost, or I don't know if Edward's a he or a she. I think that Edward is a she. But Edward is basically the exact same character that River was in Firefly. You know how like the savant girl in Firefly?
Yeah.
Exactly the same. And I started like thinking about other stuff that it might have influenced, and I think it might have influenced the lineup or the character design of the gorillas. There's the big gorilla, there's the main singer gorilla, which is Spike, there's the female gorilla, and then there's like the tiny nerdy gorilla, and I was just like, this show definitely like changed the way people looked at certain aesthetics, and I like that. I think it's pretty cool.
And the thing I like about Cowboy Bebop is that you can obviously like pin it to it being a part of that time, but the characters, their design is different than the animation that was around it back then. Like Dragon Ball Z had like that very like kind of 90s look to it. Sailor Moon also had that same look. They were very similar. Cowboy Bebop, while some of the character designs are very similar to that time, the main characters don't look that much, or they don't look too much like a 90s anime character. Like they look beyond that. They look different, and that's probably why it was so influential, because they're like, wow, like this animation looks great.
I wonder how long it took them to make this show, because I'm watching just the establishing shots for like between scenes. I'm looking at like the care that they took to animate like ships in flight. the stars in the backgrounds, and just like the little flourishes that they give certain scenes that they didn't need to, like there's a lot of extra that this show layers on top of each other. And I wonder how long it took them to make this season, because it's you could tell they put a lot of time and money into it. It looks very expensive.
One thing
to animate. Go ahead.
One thing I noticed about that, and I think one of the things I don't like about some anime, like say Naruto, just the reusing a lot of the same kind of shots, right, to kind of get around.
Right. Yeah.
Like the flying through the trees. I just can't anymore with that. But anyway, so I couldn't find, and now mind you, I did one watch through. I didn't do my normal 2 or 3 like I do before. I usually watch something with you guys.
Sure, yeah.
But
wow, Rich.
I didn't recognize anything really being used more than once. Like they don't have like a stock attack, frame that they layer in there. Like there's no, because speaking to what you just said, like there's no laziness in the animation. It's like everything is really done painstakingly, accurately, and with much attention to detail.
And
So-
look how nice the like hand-to-hand combat looks.
Oof.
Like
Yeah.
it's animated so good. Like it's amazing. Like, Dakota, this is why I've been like trying to get us to cover this for so long. It's so good. Like, I mean, like the story is good, but there's so much to it.
And also the musical choices that they intersperse occasionally. Like it'll be like an action scene. It'll be like 2 ships chasing each other like through the canyons of some city. Yeah, it's like, but like there's like this beautiful melody playing in the background on top of this, and it just completely throws you off guard. But you're just glued to the screen because it's such a juxtaposition of intense action and like just beautiful melody. The first time that I recognized that this is a well-crafted, beautiful show from episode 1. It's hard not to look at this and be like, okay, I see what they're doing here. This is like high art in terms of anime as far as anime goes. But it wasn't until the episode, let me look at the list of episodes again, Ballad of Fallen Angels, where Spike faces off against Vicious. And it's a character that we didn't really know prior to this point, but he has some, intense history with. He gets shot or pushed out of that like stained glass window, and it's just a slow motion for like 2 minutes of a song playing as his memories overlap. And it's just like, that's the moment when I first watched this, like a couple years ago at this point, that I was just like, oh, this is something really special. This is something that is like, just, I don't even understand what's happening, but I can tell that this is a beautiful moment, and whoever made this was a genius. Like that's the level of respect that particular scene garnered for like with me. Rich, I don't think you've said whether you like it or not at this point. And if you didn't like it, it's fine. But like, what are your overall opinions now that you have seen the first 13 episodes? Like, did you have that aha moment like I did?
Yeah, I think maybe. All right, so that I can remember seeing that scene, and I'm glad you said I don't know what's going on, because there's a part of me that was like, what's going on?
There's a lot of that, even up to like episode 13. I'm still trying to piece together the background history of like all these individuals, and I'm just like, okay, so Vicious is with Julia, or maybe he isn't. Maybe he's just using the name Julia. I don't know what's going on, but this is cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, I think I'm gonna go back to one of my refrains, but I think I'm gonna need, like, I think a second watch is going to help me enjoy it more. So at first, like, and I possibly because of also the experience with the sub, right? So I'm feeling very disconnected and lost as I'm watching episode 1. I'm like, I don't know.
Did you ever go back to watch the episodes dubbed, or you just kept going?
So once I realized that for episode 2, from 2 on, I was watching them dubbed.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So I just didn't rewatch 1. So episode 2 was kind of like in some way my episode 1. So I was still kind of getting bought in. By 3, I started to. Is that when Honky Tonk Woman, when Faye comes in?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she just added a dynamic to the team that I was enjoying a little bit more. It was kind of the wild card, so that kind of drew me in.
You're trying to tell me the corgi didn't do it for you?
I mean, the corgi is pretty cool, and I was also trying to understand the universe because you have the red eye spray, and then you got the Benjamin Button guy.
There's a lot going on.
It does a lot of pushing the boundaries. And I'm not sure if this is an anime thing, because I remember one of my issues with Naruto was I felt like there was never a cap to what someone's powers could possibly be. Like, this guy can make puppets. They're humans and this. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, but how does this happen? Like, in my understanding of this, like, that's not a possibility, right?
Right. The power scaling doesn't have an end. With stuff like Naruto, or even like Dragon Ball Z and stuff. Yeah.
So here, what I was kind of grappling with at first was like, what's possible in this world, what's not possible. So I guess very long answer. I did not like it at first, but by the time I ended episode 13, I wanted to watch 14. I just didn't have time.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of like little things that the show plays with in terms of like trying to slowly introduce you to the boundaries of the lore. Like that episode that you mentioned, I think it's the episode 6, Sympathy for the Devil, where you have that character who has been a kid for who knows how long, at least 50 years, but possibly longer. And we don't really understand why he was a kid. I think they kind of like explain it in like a hand wavies type of, techno jargon.
Yeah.
But they didn't really, it's not a strong enough explanation to like really get you to latch onto it. But it's one of those things that like, okay, I guess for whatever reason there is a possibility that this guy is basically immortal unless X, Y, and Z happens. But yeah, that's probably the one episode that the power scaling just seems a little out of the box, because for the rest of the series, every other character is fairly normal-ish. Like they're extremes, but they're still within the bounds of like they're basically martial artists.
Dude, he was a ghoul.
He was a ghoul.
He was a ghoul. He just looked like a child instead of a zombie.
There you have it. Anthony has the answer for us. Anthony, what are your thoughts now that you've seen it a couple times? You're coming back to it fresh. Do you find that you're hearing Rich and I kind of come to this fresh, where we don't know the full story. We have yet to see the full season. We don't know if any of these connections are eventually going to make sense. Like a lot of sense, I should say. Because right now it seems as if we're like putting pieces onto a puzzle, and it's starting like a picture starting to form. So as an insider looking, or listening to two outsiders talk about the show that you love, how do you feel? Like, are we in for a wild ride with the next handful of episodes, or like is this notion of like being a little bit confused going to be prevalent throughout the entire run of this?
Yeah, no, you're definitely in for a wild ride, but they do explain things, especially it goes back and explains the relationship of Vicious a little bit better. They explain that more. Obviously, what's going on with Julia. Yeah, definitely, man. It doesn't. I mean, I don't know if you've seen like the rating on Rotten Tomato, and I don't always like go based on just reviews solely. I also like to go based on my own experience, but still, like Rotten Tomatoes and even like the audience score is like really high for it. And so, like, if you didn't get some sort of like explanation, or if you felt kind of like unsatisfied, I don't think that it would be that high up,
Right. And I'm not saying that I'm dissatisfied. because I'm
Right.
enjoying
No,
the
because
ride.
you still have like a whole like 13 episodes to go. So, no, I'm absolutely buckle in, man, because it's gonna be a wild ride, man.
So I find that throughout the show, it really relies on vibes quite a bit, because not a lot of the characters are super likable. You have Faye Valentine, who, drawn very pretty. She's a very insufferable character otherwise, like she's meant to be written that way. And Spike is often, very flippant with the other people on his crew. Jet barely wants to be present, in anything. That's probably the wrong characterization of Jet, but you know what I'm saying. Like he's very gruff, and he's the angry old man on the crew. And
He is, but like, or he comes off that way, but that's not like 100% the truth, because you see how he's gone to go save Spike, and he's
Yes.
gone to go save Faye.
Yeah, at this point we have seen that. So it is true that he has he's an old gruff guy with a heart. He doesn't want to see his team fall apart.
Absolutely. And then you have young Edward that is, like a genius hacker.
Yeah, so far I have not, like, I guess we haven't really seen, like why they brought this kid on board. So I'm a little, I don't know enough about Edward to like really, make a judgment one way or the other. Like Edward, I keep wanting to say he, it's a she. Edward, outside of the episode that introduced her, we haven't really gotten a whole lot of use out of in terms of pushing the story forward. So I don't want to comment too much on that. Personally.
Right.
Yeah, I mean you can, whatever.
Well, yeah, no, I don't want to dig too deep into it, because we have like a whole other 13 episodes to go. But I mean, as far as like, I mean, the initial reason why Edward is there is because they were kind of in a bind, and Faye made a promise, and they were about to break that promise, but Edward hacked the ship.
That's true. Yes, Edward did hack the ship. Is Edward another character, Rich, where you feel like the power scaling is a little bit bonkers, or is like a tech genius not in that same vein?
I mean, the age is the only thing that throws me off.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
Is she
That doesn't throw me off at all. I mean, especially like with what like you've seen some of these child prodigies that they can do. That like, I mean, the scaling of the hacking might be a little bit crazy, but it being like an age, like you really just can't throw it out there. I mean, there's like 5-6-year-olds that are like playing, violin on a scale that like some adults can't.
I teach honors kids 4 classes of almost 18-year-olds. I've been doing that in this school for almost 6 years. Man, these kids can't get their passwords in. Like I just, so I guess that's, and I know where you're coming from. It's just, I guess because this is my daily life. Like I was also the technology coordinator at my old school, and at my new school, not everybody knows this, but some of my friends know that I'm pretty good with tech, so they'll give me a ring if they need something. And man, if it involves a student, like I find like even more and more, I'm going to stop yelling at the clouds like an old man, but I'm finding more and more that my students have very fancy devices, but don't know how to change settings, work things. Yeah, I have found that there's it's almost like we're in so much technology that they don't even bother figuring out how it works. They're just happy it does.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's why it would be like a prodigy. Like you can't really like compare a prodigy to like your everyday like just kid.
But it seemed
like most kids, they want to go in, like going to school for kids is like how we go to work. It's like I just want to come in, get my paycheck, and just go. That's it. That's like really, that's really like what school is kind of like. But I mean, they're the few like from time to time that are just really good at it.
Yeah, I mean, there is like, I mean, we have a student who went to our school who's like now, I don't know, sold his company for like $100 million, or he's some sort of just genius. Yeah. So, No, I totally. It's. I think it's like so. Like, does Ed have parents? I think I'm a little like hazy on like why.
I think so with Ed or Edward, they kind of pair him with the disembodied voice of a satellite that's just been orbiting Earth for who knows how long. The satellite itself is very lonely. And Ed also seems to be very lonely. We don't see Ed with anyone else other than the people that show up at her door. So I have a feeling that, the fact that, we got to see the vocalization of this forgotten satellite who is very lonely, I think that is in part meant to symbolize, Ed's loneliness and the desire for friendship. So I don't think that her parents are around, basically.
Gotcha.
That's how I interpret it anyway.
It's a good interpretation, Dakota.
Thank you, friend.
Yeah, like I know that, this is kind of like out of your wheelhouse, but definitely I would say, give it, I mean, if you want to, obviously, if you have the time, give it more, more watches, Rich. I mean, like I've given it, a few or so watches like over the years, and like, and I guess like you can kind of like toss in a little bit of like, because they have a live action, so like I saw that, so it's like pretty much like watching that story like over, but like in a live action kind of format. But yeah, man, like the biggest thing, the thing that always like gets me when I think about Cowboy Bebop though is just like how amazing that score is. Like I know we've talked a little bit about it, but like if I have any liking or if I have like any enjoyment of jazz, it started with Cowboy Bebop. Like, I wouldn't say that like I'm a big like aficionado of jazz, like I'm not gonna go crazy to listen to it, but I love the style of jazz that is like represented in this. And like, they even have some like, big band, tracks that are in there too, that just it fits the vibe of the show. And it's almost like you could call this like a kind of like in a way like a space opera,
Yeah, it definitely has space opera vibes. I kept finding myself intrigued by the level of world building that was and wasn't showcased. We obviously know that this is a post-apocalyptic future for man, that they've somehow made their way across the solar system. Basically, I don't think they have gone past the solar system. At least we haven't seen that yet. It's always been in like in the asteroid belt or the Ganymede, Mars. Like, okay, we've been to Earth one time. So I find that is kind of cool. It almost it's in the level of technological advancement that you'd see in something like The Expanse, but I found that the less they tell us, the more interested I get, if that makes sense. Because they'll show us a world, they'll show us a casino planet or a casino asteroid or something. They'll show us, people wanting to go to Mars or whatever. But they never really explain how this all happened. I don't even think there's like a coherent I mean, I as a timeline guy, I probably should have like done my research and figured out exactly at least what decade we're in, and I did look at a couple dates in the background. I know we're over like we're well into the 21st century, but I don't know exactly when this show is supposed to have taken place, but I do like the idea that the less they show us or the less they give us in terms of exposition, the more we just get by on vibes, and the show is a lot of vibes, basically.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm making
it
sense
is.
there.
It is, and the thing I like about like Cowboy Bebop, and obviously a lot of it is based in science fiction, but I kind of also put Star Trek in like this same kind of I guess it's like same kind of bubble, is that like the technology or a lot of the technology that is used in Cowboy Bebop is believable. Like I would say that the spaceships and everything that was kind of used in Cowboy Bebop was like something that I could see like actually being real. The one like one of the things that was a little bit, I would say based out of science fiction is like, it's like Stargates, right? And I thought that those looked really cool. I mean, I loved like that they had like a whole notion of like Stargates, and that like, that was their version of hyperspace. And that like, if something happens within a Stargate, if you close that Stargate out, that matter, that you could see that matter, but it's not part of that physical plane.
Yeah,
I thought
that was
so
really
sick.
cool. That was really cool. That's one of those moments where I was just like, okay, so in physics class they learned that, things traveling through hyperspace are visible to the eye, but not they can't, interact with things on this plane of reality. So now we're talking about like multiple planes of reality that they're playing with. But yeah, even just like the jump points through the Stargates, I thought that was super, super cool. And I think that they showed that like in the very first scene of the first episode, we start getting like these heavy sci-fi concepts in, interplanetary like travel, and it all looks and feels very believable, and it's not overly polished, like the animation's overly polished. It's beautiful animation. But what I'm saying is like the in-universe look to it is gritty and dirty, and it doesn't feel
lived in. Yeah.
Yes, it feels lived in. Yeah, it's really interesting. Good stuff, man. I'm happy we're doing this. We haven't done a whole lot of anime on Project Ecology just in general, but over the since we've had Rich on, we've actually covered a couple anime topics, which I'm happy about.
Yeah. I mean, with Rich being here, we're definitely gotta up the ante on anime, and I would say buckle up, or buckle up your seat belts, and the reason why I throw that little joke in there is 'cause that's the name of the group that does the score. They're called the Seatbelts.
Oh, clever.
Yeah, and that intro sequence is called Tank. One of my favorites, I have like just a bunch, like a lot of tracks that I like. One of my favorite tracks is called Rush, and it's in that first episode when he's fighting. Oh my gosh, what's his name? I always forget his name.
I mean, he's only in one episode, so it's not like
Vicious.
The guy who takes too much of the red eye.
Red Eye, yeah.
So it was like Armeni. No, it was like some. I feel
Asimov. That's what it
go.
is. Yeah. So there's a track where he's fighting Asimov, and like I love that track. It's called Rush. It's just like high speed jazz and like really awesome. I think that one's called it's not called bebop. I think it's like hard bop or something like that. But it's dude, yeah, man. I could talk about the score of this anime like all day. It's just like it's one of my favorites, and like even like you said, like even like the tracks that are just kind of like interspersed throughout the different scenes. Nothing that, not even anything that like huge and over the top for the scenes. Just like kind of transition scene. It's amazing.
So I'm looking through our episodes. So we've done a couple anime episodes with you, Rich. Starting with The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, which was directed it was an anime that is translated into English. And then a couple weeks later, we did The Boy and the Heron, which was definitely throwing you into the deep end of Hayao Miyazaki. But I'm glad you came out on top. And you're still here. You didn't dip after that. I was surprised.
You guys can take me on some rides, but a lot of it's just trying to get into the world. A lot, for me, most of the time. I mean, I won't lie. The War of the Rohirrim, yeah, it's anime. That's that's how I got Charlie to go watch it. But I was there for I was strictly there for the Lord of the Rings content.
Of course,
that's all I wanted.
And I think that's the thing. Anime is just a medium. There are so many different types of anime and animation. And we've covered a bunch of different animated type stuff on the show. We did the first season of Legend of Korra. We've done the Dragon Prince. We did Prince of Egypt. We did, like I said, Boy and the Heron and War of the Rohirrim. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, no, we did Tales of the Underworld, too. So there's a whole bunch of different animated stuff. And, like, I'm talking, cartoons in general. But when it comes to anime specifically from Japan, it does start to have a more streamlined feel. But even then, there's so many different varieties within that. And again, it's just a medium. Like you can give someone a paintbrush, and it's technically a painting, but everyone's going to paint differently. So
yeah,
I think
you're right.
That's pretty cool. Are we covering the next 13 episodes of Cowboy Bebop next week?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Like we usually finish things off. I don't think that we would like intersperse it like that.
Just for that comment, Anthony. Just for that comment.
Crazy.
We're covering Dragon Prince Season 2 next week. No, I'm kidding. No, we're definitely going to finish up Cowboy Bebop. I'm enjoying it. Did you say that there's a film as well?
Yes.
Is it a sequel to the series, or is it a recut of the series? What am I supposed to know about this film?
I don't remember. I think the movie is... I think it is a sequel. I think it's just like Cowboy Bebop, the movie. Yeah, the movie, I had seen it. I think I've seen the movie maybe a couple times, but like a while ago. I've seen the anime more than I've seen the movie. I think the movie, if I remember correctly, I don't think it was particularly bad or anything. I'm trying to remember the details of it, but yeah, I just have flashes of memories. But like, with like the actual anime, yeah, like I mean, there's vivid memories, especially like, I'm thinking like back on like the end of the anime and like how, it's like I'm excited to see like what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to because next week is totally uncharted territory for me specifically, because I had watched most of this week's stuff previously. So I was coming back to it, but next week will be all new stuff for me and all new stuff for Rich. So it'll be cool.
Rich is on the island, He crashed there, and there's a polar bear on that island and some black smoke monster that
speaking of polar bears, Pete Alonso
Lost reference, Dakota.
Yeah, but I know you were going with Lost. I just I wanted to be obnoxious and tell you that Pete Alonso is also known as the polar bear.
Pete Alonso is a Mets player, for those
sorry,
who
guys.
have no idea what we're talking about.
Daddy, you can let me in with that crowd. I just did the whole Red Sox thing, just to mess with Rich.
Anthony's like, wait, I don't remember a Pete Alonso in Cowboy Bebop. Who's Pete Alonso?
Yeah, I was like even thinking like, oh, I don't remember that person in Lost either.
I'm actually Richard from Lost. That's who I actually am.
Wow, we're rambling, guys. Let's bring it to a close. We will see you next week, or you will hear from us next week, dear listener. Hopefully, you can catch up and watch some Cowboy Bebop with us, because we're going to be talking about the next 13 episodes of the series, and we're excited to see what happens, learn what happens between Spike and Vicious. Why do they hate each other? Or love each other? I don't know what their relationship is. I really don't. But it's tenuous. It's a tenuous relationship. We're going to learn more about it next week, guys.
You know what's not tenuous, though?
Tell me.
Do you know what's not tenuous? I think what's not tenuous is something juicy.
Oh, yeah, something juicy. Specifically, well, it was a little tenuous. There was... they left the lobster in the fridge for a year, and they opened it. It's incredibly juicy in there, and it causes them to get extremely sick because there's now like a rabid, juicy alien running through the ship. But to bring this right back around,
there might have been some crunchies in there too.
There might have been. It was a rock lobster apparently. So yeah, it was definitely a little bit of crunch, a lot of juicy, but. you know what should be juicy, and I didn't really like the alien. I thought it was too juicy. You know what would be absolutely like the perfect amount of juice is a 5-star review, guys. Please be sure to go to your podcast app if you haven't already, and find our podcast, Project Geekology. Give us a 5-star review, a juicy 5-star review. You know we love them juicy here, guys. And yeah, if you want to check out any of our socials, be sure to click into the show notes down below. You'll be able to, Rich is dying laughing over there. You'll be able to check out where we are on the web and learn, more about our day-to-day lives that way. But anyway, guys, see you next time.
See you, Space Cowboy.
Ooh, I love that.
The Wolverine.
I love how Rich got to keep that going.
You can cut it. I don't care. I owe
No, we got to keep it. Bye, guys.
Bye.